the same page. However, as indicated by the African American Police Officers League, there continues to be serious reservations on the part of this group of people on whether the mayor intends to keep his promise set forth in the memo in which he signed. You know, there had developed some really hard feelings when the mayor came out with a hastily prepared reorganization plan for the Flint Police Department with terms he knew the Flint police officers couldn't take. One-man cars, scrapping their collective bargaining contract with the police unions, redoing their pension plans. All of this stuff was suggested in that plan, in that 26-point plan. Well, they're not going to buy into that, and he knew it. And what it was, and what they believe it to be, was retaliation for this group of black officers who went, and there was a large group of them, and their supporters that appeared at the city council meeting and claimed that the police department was set up now to discriminate against minorities. And they set forth various factual information that seemed to support that claim. Now, all of this, and of course they said that this plan that came out a few hours after they made their comments was hastily drawn and was really retaliation against the officers for exercising their constitutional rights and raising heck about the possibility of racism running rampant in the Flint Police Department. Now, if that's true, that's a serious allegation. You can't have a police department where minorities aren't welcome. Now, let me show you a cut that Joel Sachs, a story and a report Joel Sachs had. It's a good story. It really kind of puts light on this issue. He interviewed the mayor right after he announced his 26-point plan for reorganization, in which the police department says was retaliation for them speaking out on the problems in the Flint City Police Department. This is what led up to this meeting with the Justice Department, but I want to show you this now so you get a flavor of what we're dealing with here when it comes to correcting the problems and the chances of correcting it. Watch this heat. Play that tape, will you?
What comes next for Hagler and the Flint Police Department is up to Flint's mayor. And Don Williamson says he has big plans. He wants to restructure the department starting this Sunday. The mayor outlined those changes for ABC 12's Joel Fike, who joins us now from police headquarters with a story you'll see only on ABC 12. So Joel, why the shakeup?
Well, Angie, Mayor Williamson says he wants more Flint police officers on the street and more 911 calls responded to, so he's making wholesale changes to the way the Flint Police Department operates.
To stem Flint's rising crime rate, Williamson says he has to make changes.
When the city council turned me down, hiring the new police officers, I said, how can we attack the crime in this city? Where am I going to get the manpower?
His solution, a radical restructuring of the department that would put an extra 49 police officers on the streets.
All police cars, this is key, are to be one-man police cars.
Would that be safe?
Talk to the sheriff across the street, they're all one-man cars. Talk to the state police, Most of their cars are all one man.
The city would do away with the FANG narcotics officers, require half of all sergeants, captains, and lieutenants to be put back on the streets, and eliminate police dogs.
The sheriff's department's got 2, the state police got 100. We don't need them.
Williamson wants a satellite tracking system on all police cars and a regular audit of how officers are spending their time. While some of the 26 changes mandated by the mayor may go over like a lead balloon with the union, Williamson says he doesn't care.
The union contract should be canceled now.
But are you anti-union?
No, I don't care about the union. The union's okay. But what I'm saying to you, you got a union contract over there that tells you got to do this to get promoted. You got to be Houdini to get it done.
Williamson says the restructuring will make Flint safer.
I'm adjusting the workforce so that we are coming up with another 49 police officers without costing the taxpayers any money.
If police officers don't like it,
Delphi is hiring for $12 an hour. We will put a good word in for them.
Williamson insists he doesn't need city council approval for any of the changes.
I can do this.
Today's announcement is the latest salvo in an ongoing war of words between the mayor and the police union. All 26 changes are set
forward with his plan. A majority of Flint patrol officers say they have no confidence in Acting Chief Gary Hagler. 145 officers cast their vote in a decision yesterday. 100 said they have no confidence in Hagler's leadership. 45 said they support Hagler and his work as acting chief. Flint Police Chief Gary Hagler is also coming under fire from the Flint Police Officers Union for what they say is unfair disciplinary actions against some officers. The union says the chief has created an atmosphere of where officers are afraid to do their job for fear of being fired. ABC 12's Don Jones is live at police headquarters.
You know, with all that heat generated, there is some very strong feelings on each side. So they can come together and talk like this, but down the road, the question is, will it work? Does this background and this information tell you that there's some very serious problems on this in this police department with this mayor? And you know, you saw him, you know, he's such an arrogant ass to talk like he does talk. Now, as a result of this 26-point plan that he put together without any consultation with the police officers themselves, who know what is important out there in the streets. Not a mayor who's sitting in his office and not, I don't think he's ever been out with the police and to see what was going on. Maybe he has, but I haven't heard about it. But not to discuss it with them, not to consult with them. That was done in bad faith in my mind. And that's what the police are reacting to. The result was they started a lawsuit that's now in federal court. Here's what they allege in that lawsuit. It's the Police Officers Association as the plaintiff against the city of Flint and Donald Williamson. We have a copy of the lawsuit. Among other things, it says, in retaliation for plaintiff, which is the Flint Police Officers Union, and its members' exercise of their constitutional right of free speech and assembly rights, defendant issued Executive Order 06001, that is the 26-point plan. And then it goes on to say the adverse action, issuance of this order, has caused plaintiff and its members to suffer an injury that would likely chill a person of ordinary firmness from continuing to assemble and exercise their constitutional free speech rights. It goes on to say that the result of these one-man cars decreased the personal safety of the officers while on duty, negative effect on their ability to retire consistent with the terms of their contract, and a loss of seniority rights. All those things are in that 26-point plan. Now, you know, if you're an employee with a labor contract, You can't be changing that stuff. You know, it'll be really interesting next year when Williamson shows up at the UAW looking for an endorsement in his run for re-election. What the UAW's attitude will be with his obvious, in my opinion, and many people's opinion, anti-union stance against these police unions. Well, you know, against the history of the labor efforts, the universal sanctity of the collective bargaining agreement he wants to throw away. The preservation of pensions and other union doctrines that are held sacred. They're all in these union contracts with the police that he's trying to upset. How can the UAW seriously consider endorsing a guy like this? How can the African American community that has given him a lot of support over the years continue to support him if in fact there is racism in regard to hiring, in regard to promotion, in regard to discipline in the Flint Police Department? And there's a lot of evidence that we showed you here about 3 weeks ago that these things are happening. I've been at this job a long time. I've been watching what's going on in the Flint Police Department 50 years since I became an assistant prosecutor back in 57 or 57. Then as a prosecutor for the next 20 years. I've seen how black police officers have been treated over the years. There has been progress, but it seems to be back-flipping now. And that's not good for the community. Those in the community, whether you live in the city or outside the city, whether you're black or white, want a police department that's totally homogeneous within. People get along. Advancement is based on ability, not on whether you're a friend of the police chief, which is happening, allegedly happening here, and there's some examples of that that have been presented that indicate that. Now, there's another side, as I suggest, to this happy face they're showing you on this memo of understanding that really would better predict the future of this agreement. Is it going to be sustained? Will there be problems? There's going to be problems, but how serious are the problems going to be? Will it be easy for the parties to forget their differences? Remember, this all started when the African American police officers appeared with the city council and made allegations of racism against the Williamson administration and the police department. They were talking about how black officers were being fired for violations, some of them even technical violations, while other police officers who were friends of the police chief were not being fired. We had one officer who allegedly kidnapped a woman here about 8, 9, 10 weeks ago. You know, I don't know how accurate that is, but there's been a civil suit started because of it with the allegations. The Flint Police Department said they were doing an investigation. This was 8 weeks ago. Nothing. This is a fellow that's a very close friend of the Hagler, who hired him just about a year ago. Put him up with a salary of where he was comparable to people that had 17 years employment. This man was in Hagler's wedding. He's the guy that was alleged to have kidnapped this woman. I mean, you'd think the police department would be on that quickly with an answer. What's the answer? Well, we're going to find out, because if the police department wants to cover it up, that's their problem. There's a lawsuit, civil lawsuit, that's going to find out what happened here. And the Flint Police Department or the City of Flint will be on the hook for possible serious damages if the allegation is sustained. Well, you have all these problems, and you have them coming together. You know, you have the police department people, the officers making their comments to the city council about racism. You have Williamson's 26-point plan and retaliation, and then you have the police union bringing a lawsuit, and then you have the making allegations of discrimination by the African American police officers. To the Justice Department. You have the Justice Department begins investigating of Williamson. You know, and then the Justice Department brings Williamson and Chief Hagler kicking and screaming into this 10-hour session with the Justice Department and the other participants in this fiasco. Now, after the 10-hour discussion, they came out with this memo of understanding. And Williamson grudgingly signed it. And the officers from the African American League and the regular union were very skeptical about Williamson's carrying this through. This press conference was supposed to be called relatively shortly after that, a couple of days. It wasn't called. The police officers refused to dismiss their lawsuit. It's still pending because they don't trust Williamson. You know, the plan, this 26-point plan, you know, he comes out, Williamson and Hagler come out with all these high-sounding phrases that sound good to the public. Like, we're going to put more police officers on the street, we're taking them out from their desk jobs. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. So there are some good things in that plan. More police officers on the street. It's just, you need more officers. The problems are severe and serious. But there are so many other things that were just not acceptable. And generally they feel, the police officers feel, that Williamson knew this. And that's why they alleged this was nothing but retaliation. But this meeting, this session with the Justice Department, who came in because the allegation of racism and retaliation for expressing their constitutional rights, they have jurisdiction in those kinds of things. He set aside that 26-point plan. It's the only thing he could do. And you know, Williamson is really furious that these allegations were made, like racism and what have you. Just, you know, he's got an election to run next year for re-election as mayor, and he certainly doesn't want those kind of allegations hanging out there. And you know, right now, the police, when he didn't have that press conference, punctually, the police began to believe he was reneging. And they threatened to go back to the Justice Department if he didn't have the press conference. That forced him into having the press conference. I'm not sure he planned on having the press conference and saying he agreed to all these things. I'm sure he's upset that he has to do these things. You've seen him. He loves to push people around. But when you have a union contract and you have some cops that are not afraid of him, they're going to stand up to him, and that's what happened in this particular case. Well, these things are going on. I'm hoping that this letter or this memo of understanding works, but you know, here's all the problems. I'm not sure it will.